Welcome to Wicked Shizuku's Reviews, bringing you a southern perspective on books, movies, music, and much, much more. Stick around for a while, you just might hear something wicked. Well, hello again, and welcome to episode 53 of Wicked Shizuku's Reviews. It's Wednesday reads, so if you're new here, please rewind in the playlist to be able to listen to the beginning of these reads. And I think for this episode that we are going to cover a lesson out of the 10th edition of Norton Anthology of English Literature. So, what do I have planned for this one? We shall be covering Irish literature and Chulainn's Boyhood deeds. So, let's jump into it. The changes European literature underwent during the 12th and 13th centuries were greatly indebted to Celtic influences. The legends about King Arthur and his knights, although they were assimilated to the feudal culture of the Anglo-Normans and transmitted by texts written in Latin, French, and English, were originally products of Celtic myth and legend. The folkloric otherworld elements and the major role played by women in those stories profoundly shaped and colored the literature we now think of as romance. The French Tristan romances, the romances of Marie de France and Chrétien de Troyes, and even the legends of the Holy Grail could not have been imagined without their Celtic components. The Celts overran Central Europe, Spain, and the British Isles during the first millennium BCE. On the continent and in Great Britain, south of the wall built by the Emperor Hadrian, they were absorbed into the Roman Empire. However, the Celtic vernacular continued to be spoken as the native language, and Ireland never became a Roman province. The Anglo-Saxon invasions in the 5th and early 6th centuries, and the Danish invasions after the 8th, displaced the Celts in England, but Celtic language and culture continued to flourish in Wales, in Cornwall, in Scotland. But Celtic language and culture continued to flourish in Wales, Welsh, in Cornwall, Cornish, in Scotland, Scottish Gaelic, across the English Channel, in Brittany, Breton, and of course in Ireland, Gaelic. While still part of the Roman Empire, Britain, and in consequence, Ireland had been converted to Christianity. As portrayed in the Arthurian legend, the Christian Britons fought against barbaric Germanic invaders. Irish and Welsh missionaries, along with Roman ones, brought about the conversion of the Anglo-Saxons. The earliest Celtic literature, like that of the Anglo-Saxons, was transmitted orally, and little was copied down before the 12th century. Nevertheless, the surviving monuments indicate its richness and its significance for the development of French and English medieval literature. What follows are two examples of Irish literature, an excerpt from the Old Irish epic Tien Bo Cuailage, the cattle raid of Cooley, and some delightful monastic lyrics written between the 6th and the 9th centuries. Cuchulainn's boyhood deeds. Cuchulainn, nephew of Ulster's king Concobar, is the hero of the old Irish epic Tian Bo Coolidge, the Battle of Raid of Cooley, which tells of a great war between the kingdoms of Connaught and Ulster. The cause of the war that gives this epic work its title is the desire of Queen Meg of Connaught to obtain possession of a brown bull of Ulster to match one owned by her husband, King Ailill. The tales go back to ancient oral literature, the best surviving manuscript pieced together in the 12th century from sources, although seriously defective, nevertheless tells powerful tales. This excerpt is part of the answer. Meb and Ailill, leading the invading army, are given to query what sort of man is this Hound of Ulster. Translation is by Thomas Kinsella. Detained, 1969. Cuchulainn's boyhood deeds. There was another deed he did. Fiacha MacFir Febe said Cathbad, the druid, was staying with his son Concobar MacNessa. He had 100 studious men learning druid lore from him. This was always the number that Cathbad taught. One day a pupil asked him what that day would be lucky for. Cathbad said if a warrior took up arms for the first time that day, his name would endure in Ireland as word signifying mighty acts, and stories about him would last forever. Cuchulainn overheard this. He went to Concobar and claimed his weapons. Concobar said, "By whose instruction?" "My friend Cathbad's," Cuchulainn said. "We have heard of him," Concobar said, and gave him shield and spear. Cuchulainn brandished them in the middle of the house, and not one piece survived of the 15 sets that Concobar set kept in store for new warriors or in case of breakage. He was given Concobar's own weapons at last, and these survived. He made a flourish and saluted their owner, the king, and said, "Long life to their seed and breed, who have for their king the man who owns these weapons." It was then that Cathbad came in and said, "Do I see a young boy newly armed?" "Yes," Concobar said. "Then woe to his mother's son." He said, "What is this? Wasn't it by your own direction he came?" Concobar said, "Certainly not," Cathbad said. "Little demon, why did you lie to me?" Concobar said to Cuchulainn, "It was no lie, king of warriors." Cuchulainn said, "I happened to hear him instructing his pupils this morning south of the Main, and I came to you then." "Well," Cathbad said, "the day has this merit. He who arms for the first time today will achieve fame and greatness, but his life is short." "That is a fair bargain," Cuchulainn said. "If I achieve fame, I am content, though I had only one day on earth." Another day came, and another druid asked what that day would be lucky for. "Whoever mounts his first chariot today," Cathbad said, "his name will live forever in Ireland." Cuchulainn overheard this also, and went to Concobar and said, "Friend Concobar, my chariot." A chariot he was given to him. He clapped his hands to the chariot between the shafts, and the frame broke at his touch. In the same way he broke 12 chariots. At last they gave him Concobar's chariot, and that survived him. He mounted the chariot beside Concobor's charioteer, this charioteer Ibert, by name, turned the chariot round where it stood. "You can get out of the chariot now," the charioteer said. "You think your horses are precious," Cuchulainn said, "but so am I, my friend. Drive around Emain now, and you won't lose by it." The charioteer set off. Cuchulainn urged him to take the road to the boy troop, to greet them and get their blessing in return. After this, he asked him to go further along the road. Cuchulainn said to the charioteer as they drove onward, "Use your goad on the horses now." "Which direction?" the charioteer said. "As far as the road will take us," Cuchulainn said. They came to Slibfuit. They met Conall Cernach there, for to Conall Cernach had fallen the care of the province boundary that day. Each of Ulster's heroic warriors had his day on Slibfuit to take care of every man who came that way with poetry, and to fight any others. In this way everyone was challenged, and no one slipped past to Emain unnoticed. "May you prosper," Conall said. "I wish you victory and triumph." "Conall, go back to the fort," Cuchulainn said, "and let me keep watch here a little." "You would do for looking after men of poetry," Conall said, "but you are a little young still for dealing with men of war." "It might never happen at all," Cuchulainn said. "Let us wander off, meanwhile," he said, "to view the shore of the Loch Extra. Warriors are often camped there." "It is a pleasant thought," Conall said. They set off. Suddenly Cuchulainn let fly a stone from his sling and smashed the shaft of Conall Cernach's chariot. "Why did you cast that stone, boy?" Conall said. "To test my hand and the straightness of my aim," Cuchulainn said. "Now, since it is your Ulster custom not to continue a dangerous journey, go back to Emain, friend Conall, and leave me here on guard." "If I must," Conall said. Conall Cernach wouldn't go beyond that point. Cuchulainn went on to the Loch Extra, but found no one there. The charioteer said to Cuchulainn that they ought to go back to Emain, that they might get there before the drinking. "No," Cuchulainn said. "What is that peak there?" "Sliab Mundairn," the charioteer said. "Take me there," Cuchulainn said. They traveled on until they got there. On arriving at the mountain, Cuchulainn asked, "That white heap of stones on the mountain top, what is it called?" "The lookout place, Fin Cairn, the White Cairn," the charioteer said. "That plain there before us," Cuchulainn said. "Magburg, or Magbreg, Breg Plain," the charioteer said. In this way he gave the name of every fort of any size between Timare and Sinanos, and he recited to him also all fields and fords, all habitations and places of note, and every fastness and fortress. He pointed out at last the fort of the 3 sons of Necna Sieni, who were called Foil, for deceitfulness, and Fanal, the swallow, and Tuashel, the cunning. They came from the mouth of the river Sieni. Fair Uli, Lugaid's son, was there, father of Necta Sieni, their mother. Ulstermen had killed their father, and this is why they were at enmity with them. "Is it these who say," Cuchulainn said, "that they have killed as many Ulstermen as are now living?" "They are the ones," the charioteer said. Take me to meet them, Cuchulainn said. That is looking for danger, the charioteer said. We're not going there to avoid it, Cuchulainn said. They traveled on and turned their horses loose where bog and river met. To the south and upstream of their enemy's stronghold, he took the spancel hoop of challenge from the pillar stone at the ford and threw it as far as he could out into the river, and let the current take it, thus challenging the band of the sons of Nectaseanet. They took note of this and started out to find him. Cuchulainn, after sending out the spatial hoop downstream, laid down the pillar stone to rest and said to his charioteer, If only one man comes or two, don't wake me, but wake me if they all come. The charioteer waited meanwhile in terror. He yoked the chariot and pulled off the skins and coverings that were over Cuchulainn, trying not to wake him, since Cuchulainn had told him not to wake him for only one. Then the sons of Nectaseanet came up. Who is that there? Said one. A little boy out in his chariot today for the first time, the charioteer said. Then his luck has deserted him, said the warrior said. This is a bad beginning in arms for him. Get out of our land. Graze your horses here no more. I have the reins in my hand, the charioteer said. Then Ivor said to the warrior, Why should you earn enmity? Look, the boy is asleep. A boy with a difference, cried Cuchulainn. A boy who came here to look for a fight. It will be a pleasure, the warrior said. You may have that pleasure now. In the ford there, Cuchulainn said. You would be wise, the charioteer said, to be careful of the man who is coming against you. Foil is his name, he said. If you don't get him with your first thrust, you may thrust away all day. I swear the oath of my people that he won't play that trick on an Ulsterman again when my friend Concobor's broad spear leaves my hand to find him. He'll feel it like the hand of an outlaw. He flung the spear at him, and it pierced him and broke his back. He removed the trophies and the head with them. Watch this other one, the charioteer said. Fanal is his name, and he treads the water no heavier than a swan or swallow. I swear he won't use that trick against an Ulsterman again, Cuchulainn said. You have seen how I foot the pool in Inmain. They met in the ford, and he killed the man and took away the trophies and the head. Watch this next one advancing against you, the charioteer said. Tuathil is his name, and he wasn't named in vain. He has never fallen to any weapon. I have the Del Shis for him, a wily weapon to churn him up. And red riddle him, Cuchulainn said. He threw the spear at him and tore him asunder where he stood. He went up and cut off his head. He gave the head and trophies to his charioteer. Then a scream rose up behind them from the mother Nectaseanet. Cuchulainn lifted the trophies off the ground and brought the 3 heads with him into the chariot, saying, I won't let go of these trophies until we reach Emain Macha. They set out for Emain Macha with all his spoils. Cuchulainn said to his charioteer, You promised us great driving. We'll need it now after our flight, with this chase after us. They traveled onward to Sleab Fuit. So fleet their haste across the Breg plain. As he hurried, the charioteer that the chariot horses overtook the wind and the birds in flight, and Cuchulainn could reach the shot from his sling before it hit the earth. When they got to Sleab Fuit, they found a herd of deer before them. What are those nimble beasts there? Cuchulainn said. Wild deer, the charioteer said. Cucullin said, which would the men of Ulster like brought in, a dead one or a live one? A live one would startle them more, the charioteer said. It isn't every one who could do it. Every man there has brought home a dead one. You can't catch them alive. I can, Cucullin said. Use your goad on the horses over the marsh. The charioteer did so until the horses bogged down. Cucullin got out and caught the deer nearest to him, the handsomest of all. He lashed the horses free of the bog and calmed the deer quickly. Then he tethered it between the rear shafts of the chariot. The next thing they saw before them was a flock of swans. Would the men of Ulster prefer to have these brought in alive or dead? Cucullin said. The quickest and the most expert take them alive, the charioteer said. Cucullin immediately flung a little stone at the birds and brought down 8 of them. Then he flung a bigger stone and brought down 12 more. He did this with his feet and of stunning shots. Gather in our birds now, Cucullin said to his charioteer. If I go out to them, this wild stag will turn on you. But it's no easier if I go, the charioteer said. The horses are so maddened that I can't get past them. I can't get over the 2 iron rims of the chariot wheels, they are so sharp. And I can't get past this stag. His antlers fill all the spaces in between the chariot's shafts. Step out onto the antlers, Cucullin said. I swear the oath of Ulster's people, I'll turn my head on him with such a stare, I'll fix him with such an eye, that he won't dare to stir or budge his head at you. He did this. Cucullin tied the reins, and the charioteer gathered up the birds. Then Cucullin fastened the birds to the cords and thongs of the chariot. It was in this manner that they came back to Emain Macha, a wild stag behind the chariot, a swan flock fluttering above, and the 3 heads of Nectasiene's sons inside the chariot. They came to Emain. A man in a chariot advancing upon us, cried the watcher in the Emain Macha. He'll spill the blood of the whole court unless you see to him and send naked women to meet him. Cucullin turned the left chariot board toward Emain in insult, and he said, I swear by the oath of Ulster's people that if a man isn't found to fight me, I'll spill the blood of everyone in this court. Naked women to him, Conchobar said. The women of Emain went forth, with Mugain, the wife of Conchobar, Macnessa, at their head, and they stripped their breasts at him. These are the warriors you must struggle with today, Mugain said. He hid his countenance. Immediately the warriors of Emain seized him and plunged him in a vat of cold water. The vat burst asunder about him. Then he was thrust into another vat, and it boiled with bubbles the size of fists. He was placed at last in a 3rd vat, and warmed it till its heat and cold were equal. Then he got out, and Mugain, the queen, gave him a blue cloak to go around him, with a silver brooch in it, and a hooded tunic, and he sat on Conchobar's knee, and that was his seat ever after. What wonder? Fiacha Mac Fearfabe said, and the one who did this in his 7th year should triumph against odds and beat his match today, when he is fully 17 years old. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with early Irish lyrics as well, to go ahead and finish out the Irish literature section. Monastic Irish scribes were also composers of beautiful lyrics, inspired by both the study and what could be seen from the study. The Scholar and His Cat. I and White Pangur practice each of us his special art. His mind is set on hunting, my mind on my special craft. I love, it is better than all fame, to be quiet beside my book, diligently pursuing knowledge. White Pangur does not envy me. He loves his childish craft. When the two of us, this tale never wearies us, are alone together in our house, we have something to which we may apply our skill and endless sport. It is unusual at times for a mouse to stick in his net. As a result of warlike battlings, for my part, into my net falls some difficult rule of hard meaning. He directs his bright, perfect eye against an enclosing wall. Though my clear eye is very weak, I direct it against keenness of knowledge. He is joyful with swift movement when a mouse sticks in his sharp paw. I too am joyful when I understand a dear loved difficult problem, though when we be thus at any time, neither of us hinders the other. Each of us likes his craft, severally rejoicing in them. He it is who is master for himself of the work which he does every day. I can perform my own work directed at understanding clearly what is difficult. The Scribe in the Woods. A hedge of trees overlooks me. A blackbird's lay sings to me an announcement which I shall not conceal. Above my lined book, the birds chanting sings to me. A clear-voiced cuckoo sings to me goodly utterance. In a grey cloak from bush fortresses. The Lord is indeed good to me. Well do I write beneath a forest of woodland. The land of creation. Let us adore the Lord, maker of wondrous works. Great bright heaven with its angels, the white waved sea on earth. My hand is weary with writing. My hand is weary with writing. My sharp great point is not thick. My slender beaked pen juts forth a beetle-hued draught of bright blue ink. A steady stream of wisdom springs from my well-colored, neat, fair hand. On the page it pours its draught of ink on the green-skinned holly. I send my little dripping pen unceasingly over an assemblage of books of great beauty to enrich the possessions of men of art, whence my hand is weary with writing. So, the next time that we shall have a British literature lesson, we will be continuing with Anglo-Norman literature. But until then, if you liked this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. And if you have any questions or any criticisms of my pronunciations, please leave them down in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And until then, have a good evening, sleep well.